I promise this won't hurt a bit. When it comes to dyes dye things, so they will dye you too, so you better have gloves on. There's lots of different dyes, and I'm going to talk about those as we go. But one thing that Bruce found out is you have to get in touch with your feminine side a little bit to do this. The best thing he found for applying the dye are these makeup wedges. These are called Wonder Wedges, by the way. Nice name, huh? But these take just enough of the dye, and then it puts it in the sponge so you can put it exactly where you want it, which is an important thing when we're working with things that can dye everything on Earth, and it won't come out. Well, until your skin grows and leaves you. But anyway, so this stuff either comes pre-mixed, or it comes, get in there, I'm scared of it, or you can buy it in powders. The neat thing is there are water-based, there's also alcohol-based. There's different reasons for those. Alcohol-based dries faster. Water-based will raise the grain, but the neat thing about water-based is you have a lot more colors to choose from. Now, one thing I didn't do today because it would have taken a little more time is, once you sand the back of this piece, go ahead and put some sanding sealer on it, because you can see how the black is bleeding in. If you put the sanding sealer on there first, the black won't go into the back. But if that's a problem for you, just go ahead and black the back at the same time, and then this will be the back side of the pendant, and no one's going to care. It looks like you did it on purpose, right? But black is a very important color when you do coloring, because you need a base coat on there that's going to go into the fibers of the wood, and some of the highlights of the wood is harder. The wood's harder than other parts of the wood, and that's how this works, because you know how the end grain of a piece of wood will soak up your sealer that you're trying to keep the water from escaping. It just soaks it up like crazy on the end grain, and then the side grain just rejects it. Well, what you're trying to do here on a burl, on a wild piece of wood, some of that's going to soak it up. You can see it looks kind of dry and flat in spots and shiny in spots. Where it's shiny, that wood's harder and it's not absorbing as much as of the ink or the dye, I mean. And where it's softer, it's really soaking in there. So what we want to do is get a good liberal helping on there. Now, to make, oops, let me do the edges on this too. To make life a lot easier, and also probably to make this dye set even better, because a lot of these dyes were developed for clothes, you actually want to heat treat the wood now. It helps dry the dye, and it also helps to set the dye, so it's going to be a lot stronger and stay in there a lot longer. Now all I do, oh, there it is, over here. You can just buy a heat gun from any old place, you know. You don't have to have a fancy one. You could use your hair dryer. I don't have one anymore, but it wouldn't get quite as hot as you need. So you want to do this and put the heat on here until these become toasty. And then you can tell also some of the shine will go away, and when the shine goes away, you know you've also gotten out all the moisture. Now I'm using an alcohol-based black here, but I'm going to use water-based colors after this. So once this dries, we're on to our next step. Now that you put all that color on there, you want to remove about 60 to 80% of it. And you can hand sand these, which is fine, but I like to use equipment to help me out. If it can plug in and help me, that's great, because I don't have to work as hard. But I want to remove some of the black out of it. So I'm exposing, you can see the white of the wood again. That's where the next color is going to go, and that's how we get our differences. And you can see, that's what I was talking about, hard and soft. The soft wood kept the ink in it, the dye in it. The hard wood, it didn't go in deep enough, so that's what I'm sanding off. And when you look at this, it's got some really neat figure into it, doesn't it? Let me turn that on one more time and take a little bit more off. I am wearing breathing protection again, because in addition to the sawdust that you're getting off of here, the inks, since they're powdered, they're dry now. Well, they're pretty nasty too if you get them in your lungs. And when you're doing this, by the way, don't worry if you take off too much dye, because you can always put dye back on. That's no big deal. But you can see this has some beautiful striping on it, so I think we're going to wind up with a really neat effect. Pop that off there. Still using the same piece of tape. Don't need this anymore. Scared you, didn't I? Okay, let's go over here. Now, we're going to go for our next color. This is layer number 2. You can stop at layer number 2 if you want. Get some of the dust off of this. I can always wash these jeans later. Let me get new gloves too, because if you get the black ink on your gloves, or the dye, it will maybe bleed into the next ink you're using. Even though it's dried, it can, with the water base, it can reactivate it a little bit because you haven't heat treated it on your gloves. So again, this is not going to hurt. So let's go for red. This is really cool. These are water based at this point, and you can get, I mean, dozens of colors in the water base. And so it's up to you to figure out what colors you want to use and what looks you want. One thing that Bruce did that I was really impressed with, he built himself a storyboard on the maple that he uses to make his pendants with. And look at all the different colors he has on here. So he now knows when he's looking at that dark bottle that actually he's got this color instead of this color. And that makes a big difference when you're trying to mix all your colors. Another thing to remember is when you were in school, okay, red and yellow make what? Green, I think. So you can actually blend the colors to make different colors. And back to my little swab here. We're going to go for some red right now. There we go. And we're going to put that on there. Woo! That is beautiful looking, isn't it? That is neat. Now you see how the black works as an undercoat to actually show off the red color. So get that in there really good like so. With water-based dyes, I'm going to get another little sponge here. We're going to go with this golden honey amber, I think is what it's called. You can actually control the saturation level of the colors better than you can with the alcohol base. So in other words, you can make this lighter, darker by how you mix the powders. And you're just mixing them with water. And I don't have those here because they're really messy. I let Bruce do all that hard work. So that looks really nice. So now you can see the different colors we're getting. You can also see that grain starting to pop out. So I'm going to do the same thing I did a minute ago, and I'm going to dry them, sand them, and we'll go for our final color. Now I'm sanding our second coat down, and you can see I'm doing specific sanding. See, I'm bringing a line there. I'm trying to make some effects with this. I'm trying to expose the wood. I'm leaving some of the red, but you can actually remove wood or a complete color by sanding on the edge. I'm using 400 grit sandpaper now. So we're making a very smooth surface, and you can see I've already sanded this one. So let me get the dust off of this and the dust off of this. You'll be much neater than me when you're doing it. So let's go for a blue color, and we're going to use it on the yellow, like so. Now you can see the green coming out, see? Okay, it's blue and yellow makes green. I didn't figure this out one of these days. But anyway, it might look a little dull right now, but that's simply because it's soaking in and it's dry. Once we dry this and sand it again, it's really going to pop. But once we've done that too, let me get some of the honey amber here. This is really cool stuff. This is what I love. Honey amber on the wood looks spectacular. It has such a cool color. And you can see how it's blending in with the red. That's really nice. And look at the blacks pop. That's really cool. But anyway, once we get this dried and we sand it one more time, we will start putting our finish on it and the accessories to make it into a piece of jewelry. Okay, I'm back from my paint booth. I was outside. And I was using some sanding sealer for the first coat on these. And it starts to bring out the grain a little bit. You can see it ripple now. Isn't that kind of cool? A couple coats of that, and you can sand or buff that in between. Then the last thing you want to put on there is a polyurethane finish, but we'll get to that in a second. The reason I'm showing you how to make pendants is because of the coloring part. Because look at what else you can do with the coloring. This is some of Bruce's work, and he's been going whole hog at this thing. And you can see how it really accentuates the wood. I mean, that's beautiful. This piece, unfortunately, took a trip off of his shelf at a craft show, so it's cracked, but it's a great example of a burl and how it's dark and light. He used just one color here to highlight all that. And you can use everyday items like a pepper grinder or a salt grinder. And you can see he put pink in there and yellow and stuff like that. And then over here, look at the figure on this wood. If you didn't have this on here, you wouldn't see that figure as much, and it really highlighted it. It's beautiful looking. That's what's so fun about using dyes to color your wood, because you can take something with a little bit of figure in it and really pop it and make it spectacular. Now, to finish the spectacular on these, like I said, a couple coats on these, and then you're going to want to get yourself some wipe-on poly and a paper towel. And I'll load this up just a little bit. Whoa, that's loaded. Okay. These are a few I did earlier. They have their 2 coats on there. And you simply hand wipe the poly on here. This is when you see the beauty of the wood. Isn't that incredible?